everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer this week. This is going to be the astro weather for September 24th through October 1st, 2023. Hopefully your guys' weekend is going well, especially those of you guys who are joining me on Sunday. Happy Sunday. We are going to be having quite an electrifying week. Sparks will be flying. There is lots of Uranus aspects taking place this week, and to some extent some aspects that we have yet to see, especially involving Mercury and Uranus. And we're also going to be seeing the final Venus-Uranus square. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm a Western astrologer. I focus on working both with the art of tarot as well as the Sabian symbols to better understand what's going on in the cosmos. For me, man, crazy week ahead. The week almost feels like a final episode of a reality show. You guys will have to watch until next Sunday. Let me know how it unfolds for you, and what shocking surprises play out for you. I feel like after all of the plot twists and the cliffhangers, this is the week where we start to see the final effects of some of these Uranus aspects that we have been seeing play out throughout both the Venus and the Mercury retrograde. We see Mercury finally trine Uranus and Taurus, which, if you guys have been paying attention, the Mercury retrograde in Virgo actually stopped short of 1 degree trine to Uranus. So this might be bringing some shocking results coming to light, information that might be dropping. We know that Mercury is moving through the sign of Virgo, which deals with health, business, being of service. It's also going to be a lot in regards to scheduling. So you guys might notice some schedule disruptions this week. And we are going to see the final Venus-Uranus square that's going to be taking place as well. So that's going to be fun. We've seen several of those that have been taking place since really early July. If you guys were watching the Venus retrograde videos, Venus has been kind of squaring off in the sign of Leo to Uranus in Taurus. It's been hard to miss these squares, to be honest with you, because it brings a lot of shakeups in relationships and finances. But also Venus has been making aspects to Jupiter, so it's been making things feel a little bit bigger. And Venus, you know, is the dispositor of Uranus and Taurus. So even the Mercury retrograde, when we start to see Mercury come out of the retrograde shadow and trine Uranus this week, it's going to be lots of shocks and surprises regarding money, stability, resource, job numbers. We're also going to see Mars enter 21 degrees this week. It's going to hit 21 degrees of Libra. This is the degree of the incoming solar eclipse that we'll be having next month in October. And it will start to make its conjunction to the South Node this week. So there's a lot of snip in relationships. There's a lot of learning to let go of people pleasing. There's a lot of dealing with past life relationship karma. We've got Mars, which is about action and vitality, moving through the Venusian sign of Libra. And Mars is the ruler of the North Node. So there's a little bit of having to deal with the past in order to get to where we're going. So yeah, shocking, surprising, electrifying. And the Venus-Uranus square is going to be taking place at 22 degrees. And the and the Mercury trine to Uranus is going to be taking place at 22 degrees. So 22 degrees is the hot degree. I'd like to read to you guys what Nicola has to say about 22 degrees and Capricorn. If you guys follow my work, you know that I like to use degree theory. So if you follow 1 through 12 degrees, Aries through Pisces, right? So each individual number from really 0, but 1 to 29 degrees correlates with one of the zodiac signs. So both 10 and 22 degrees deal with Capricorn. So we're going to see these aspects being made to Uranus retrograde. So there might be some shocking things that we are revealing or being revealed to the masses. Uranus can talk about collective masses and groups of people. It can be about an awakening. And 22 degrees, like I said, deals with Capricorn. So some of the themes that we see are older things, right? Because Saturn is connected to Capricorn. So old banking systems, maybe, right, Taurus? Old ways of doing things with money. We're reevaluating history in some way. Archaeology, something or someone from the past, or even antiques. Things that might be late or things that might require delays. Something that's durable, that might last long, but can bring us some challenges, bring us some trouble. We do sometimes see themes revolving around depression, depressive states, things that are gloomy. Now, I don't say this to kind of like fear monger because that's not my MO, but I can't help but like laugh at the irony of Uranus retrograde and 22 degrees and Mercury coming into a trine. I'm going to assume that the chatter that we're going to be hearing is not so much concern about whether or not we're coming into a recession. I'm not an economist, but I think a lot of us are kind of realizing that might already be here. But we might start hearing chatters revolving around, well, is it going to be a recession, or are we looking at a depression? 22 degrees to be depressed. Analysis and numbers and facts and figures. You're going to see a lot of people weighing in on whether or not there's gloomy or depressive news on the forefront in regards to job numbers and things in regards to the economy. 22 degrees deals with stuff that's cold, okay? Stuff that's slow, takes a little bit of time to develop, resist, longevity, restraint, things that deal with skin and skin treatments, poverty, shortages, something that's missing, stuff that can be black or gray, rock stones, cliff mountains, things that are dirty, smeared, unclean coal, natural materials. Obviously it's a little out there, some of that stuff, but I'm wondering if we're going to be hearing more news revolving around, some job delays, some challenges with employment that might be kind of coming up, and what we're hearing from also funding and the budget. So it's no coincidence that coming into this next week, we're seeing, at least here in the United States, that there's going to be talk about a potential shutdown, right? Slowing of government, 22 degrees, and the Mercury trine Uranus is whether or not they can reach some kind of financial agreement. So is it written in the stars? Perhaps that may be the case this week. So watch for that. You want to pay attention to where Mercury is in the sign of Virgo. And the trine to Uranus is what it just barely kind of had right when the Mercury retrograde started. So some kind of information that's been delayed is now going to start to kind of come to light. Okay. So let's go ahead and go through the week. Let's take a look at what the transits look like day by day. We're going to start with today, Sunday, the 24th. So you guys are waking up in the morning and the moon is in the sign of Capricorn. We've had a couple of these Capricorn moon Sundays in recent months. I always tell you guys, when the moon's in Capricorn, we have a goal, we're focused, we're wanting to get something done. And you might notice that it's a bit moody, it's a bit gloomy this morning, and that's because the moon is coming into a conjunction with Pluto. So there can be some intense emotional vibes. There can be a sense of dealing with power struggles. There can be a bit of like having the Sundays blues, dreading going back to work. That can definitely be a theme. We are also going to be seeing the moon making some connections with a sextile to Neptune. So there's a lot about, wanting to change and transform something about our responsibilities, our goals. And we can do that by learning to dissolve and let certain things go. We can also do that by meditating, reflecting, taking time alone to kind of focus on what we want to achieve, what we're manifesting. We will also see the moon start coming into a trine with Uranus very early in the morning. And that's about emotionally changing and adjusting. So there's a real need to really focus on grounding this morning. Perhaps some of you guys make the most of the Capricorn moon transit by kind of preparing for your work week, maybe kind of getting some things in order, looking at your schedule, doing some of that stuff, because we still have Mercury in Virgo. So that trine to Jupiter is going to also bring the opportunity to be optimistic about what the future holds, and to be very productive when it comes to organization and work and timing. So the moon's going to catch a conjunction to Pluto and that's going to happen closer to early afternoon. That'll be at 27 degrees. So some kind of emotional change, breakdown, conversation, communication. And this will be just after the moon also squares the nodes. So when the moon squares its own nodes, kind of sensitive, there can be some karmic stuff at play. So I'm looking at like the late morning into early afternoon. Pay attention to what's changing, transforming, and breaking down. And what is breaking down? Old ways of doing things, having to work too hard, having to push too hard, having to deny emotions and feelings. So we're learning to kind of like let that go. And when we're in a square to the nodes, we're between a rock and a hard place. So some of you guys might go, okay, I'm learning how to work smarter, not harder, right? Moon trine Uranus. Other people are kind of having the breakdown, going like, this isn't working anymore. You know, what can I release and let go of? So depending on how this aspects your chart, just pay attention to that. The mood will change pretty significantly though, both because we're going to start feeling Mercury coming into a trine with Jupiter, so it can be a little bit more positive and optimistic later in the evening, but also because in the evening hours, the moon will move into Aquarius. Immediately start trining and coming into positive harmonious aspect with the sun in Libra. So my advice is take time this morning to kind of strategize, process stuff, get things done, work through whatever you got to work through, socializing a little bit easier in the evening hours. Okay, so maybe keeping your plans to socializing, doing dinner, doing stuff with people tonight would be a little bit of like a better move. Now, when the moon's in Aquarius, we want to be with other people. We want to be with friends. We want to focus on goals. There is a sense of also being a little bit more independent. This is going to put much more of an emphasis on Uranus. So you are going to start feeling the incoming Venus-Uranus square. But that can bring lively opportunities in friendships, connections, relationships. And I'm loving that moon trine the sun in Libra because it feels very social, very fun, getting together with other people, really focusing on our partnerships, our friendships, our relationships. So it can be quite a lovely aspect to have this evening. We will start to feel Mercury coming into a trine with Jupiter, although that's not going to perfect until tomorrow. But that's a part of a storyline that we've been going back and forth through really the last month, where we've been learning through the Mercury retrograde to get organized, to take something apart, work something out, become more structured, and start focusing on getting down to the details. So we can focus more on stability, on resourcefulness, on having more abundance, having better grounding capabilities, being in our bodies. For a lot of people, this has been about habits relating to spending money, habits relating to productivity, or perhaps even health and fitness. So we're going to start to see that kind of positivity start to come through Sunday night, but you'll see that perfect on Monday. And this will be one of 3 trines. And then finally, we are going to finish off the evening with Mars in Libra in opposition to Chiron. So this is a sneaky little aspect that might sneak up on us. That may be a part of the Moon Pluto stuff where we're starting to kind of realize there's something breaking down and changing about who's in charge, or you know what our purpose is, or our relationships with other people. Mars definitely in Libra is about trying to work together with other people and trying to extend that olive branch and finding like common goals and trying to be like a mediator. So there can be a sense of there being a push to like really show up in relationship with other people right now. When I say relationship, I don't mean just romantic relationships. This can be business partners, this can be clients, this can be friendships. There can be this awareness that, you know, good relationships, friendships, what have you, are worth fighting for, are worth working for. Because Mars is the ruler of the North Node. The problem is that not only do we have Mars kind of debilitated in the sign of Libra, it doesn't express frustration as well. There can be some challenges in relationships, but we also have Mars getting very close to the South Node, so it's almost like we're feeling like we're like a broken record. We're playing like the same kind of dramas in relationships over and over. But we're also starting to see Mars form in opposition to Chiron, both at 18 degrees. So there can be lots of like nitpicking and having conflict over being very hypercritical of other people. There can also be a sense of other people's, bad habits coming up in relationships, bad habits coming up just in general, especially like social habits. And we want to watch for like potentially other people being a bad influence this evening. That can definitely happen with Mars in opposition to Chiron. Chiron in Aries is all about healing the self-wound, especially when it comes to self-empowerment, independence. We might really start to, especially if we are not in relationships, feel the wound of being like, wow, it would be nice to have someone. There can be kind of being hard on yourself about why relationships aren't falling into place. And you really want to catch yourself if you start to kind of get into the Mars South Node frustration of wanting to have conflict, right? Or being too hard on yourself. Anyway, this is only the first of what's going to be several pretty significant Mars aspects. I would recommend going and listening to my Mars and Libra video. I take you guys through all of the transits. I talk about how Mars conjunct the South Node is about combating the past, really letting the past go, and also how Mars will come into a square with Pluto. So this is going to be a lot of Mars energy here for the better part of like the next month or so. Once we get Mars into Scorpio, it's going to be easier to kind of transmute some of these issues that we've had with relationships, and we can be focusing on, just like renewal. But you want to watch for there being situations where you're really recognizing where you're just stuck in a pattern in regards to your relationships with other people. Or maybe you find like, man, just this one person just keeps doing the same thing. Or like, maybe I'm not showing up and being my best self in a friendship or in a relationship to another person. There can also be like wounding that can be going on where we're feeling like other people aren't showing up for us. 18 degrees is a Virgo degree. So it definitely, especially if you have like a client-based business, you can notice that there can be some people who are canceling. If you're in a business where you work directly with a partnership, that can be something that can be coming up where you're kind of feeling like unsupported or that something is kind of destabilized there. As we go through the evening, you're not going to see too much else going on. We're going to start to see the moon continue to move through Aquarius, taking us into Monday. That'll be the 25th. And we wake up with the moon still in Aquarius, so it's still making some positive aspects to the sun. So when we have this air trine, there's a lot of being intellectual, communicating, floating around, talking, focusing on socializing, believe it or not. So, that Sun and Mars in Libra is very active when it comes to relationships. And we're going to see at some point on Monday, the moon is going to come into some difficult aspects between planets in fixed signs. And so the way out of that, when you start encountering that in Aquarius, so you want to work with the moon trine Mars. It's like, okay, that's not working, but what can we make happen today? Or how can we help each other? Like, tell me what you need. Aquarius wants to work as a team. So this can be really great for like team building exercises, overcoming hurdles, learning how to communicate and better support one another. And those squares that we're going to see with the moon in Aquarius is going to start coming in the early PM hours. So that will be down the road. And in the background, this Mercury trine Jupiter perfects. So whatever kind of like positivity, optimism about the future, Jupiter, future resources, future financial plans, changes with health habits and patterns, that finally perfects right around the early morning. And then the moon in Aquarius will start coming into a square with Jupiter in the evening. And this is where, there can be some overindulging, right? With moon square Jupiter, oversensitive, overstimulated. That stuff can definitely be going on here. Obviously, we look at Uranus when the moon is going through Aquarius, and we're really feeling the incoming Venus-Uranus square. Thankfully, it looks like the moon's going to oppose Venus in the PM hours while most of you guys are sleeping. And then the final aspect that you're going to get in the evening is going to be the moon trine Mars. So yet again, another day, Monday night, great for socializing, working with other people, talking about team building. I mean, like, whether it's making an effort to call your friends, making an effort to spend time with your partner, you want to work with the trines to Libra and try to find ways to be able to connect and communicate. Great day for sharing with each other. And then we're going to start to see over the PM hours, the moon will come into a opposition with Venus. So that can have us like longing for something or for someone. And then we're going to see on Tuesday, the 26th, we wake up and the moon is in a square to Uranus. So I know you guys like my market predictions. So watch the early, I guess, what is it? The pre-hour, whatever on the market. You're going to see in the morning, the moon is going to square Uranus, which means the public is responding wildly to something that's going on with finances. The stock market in itself is actually Leo. So the moon will oppose Leo and Venus is starting to come into a square with Uranus. So I would imagine either the after hours or the pre hours are going to be colorful on Tuesday morning. Remember, when Venus is in opposition to the moon, something feels out of reach, right? So it's kind of like, whoa, this is kind of like a bit wild. Still feeling that moon trine Mars, so that's a very productive morning. But when the moon is in a square to Uranus, this hard aspect represents not responding or changing well to physical circumstances. So the way the public is responding to what is Taurus, the banks, the resources, inflation, physical, changes, and we're starting to feel the Venus square. So this is going to be a pretty strong T-square that's building in the fixed signs, and those T-squares, they don't like change. This can be a time where you're feeling like you're at odds with another person, especially when it comes to your values and your resources. There can be some challenges there. And on the 26th, we're then going to see the moon start coming into a trine with the south node. So this is nice because it's going to represent some kind of like releasing. And that's going to be right around midday on Tuesday, the 26th. Moon in Aquarius trine the south node. So something about release, loss, letting go. Really the theme like Sunday, Monday into Tuesday is like where networking and groups and friends and support and focusing on your goals and like where, like other people can help support where you're going is the key. Whether you're, going through a separation or a breakup and you just need to have like a dinner with a friend and a heart-to-heart, or, you're really focusing on your goals and you're like, let me call up that person who I used to work with and see if we can collaborate. We want to work with the Aquarius and Libra energy in a way where we can create harmony and we can also create some kind of support system. Otherwise, we're going to get lost in the squares to the fixed signs, and we're going to get so focused on this didn't work, or this fell through, or this happened with my job. And, there can definitely be some financial kind of dramas. So think about solutions and don't be super fixated on the immediate problem. Be focusing on how you can get support from other people or give support to other people. Then we're going to start to see not just the trine to the south node where there's like an emotional clearing, but there is a sextile to the north node. So we start to realize that part of focusing on our goals, Aquarius, is so important for coming into our destiny, our dharma, north node, taking action, being independent. So this is going to be a nice aspect, I think, for individuals feeling very guided and like supported by others. And that's going to kind of add a little bit of pep to your step. And then in the evening hours, we start to see a very different energy. We start to see the moon coming into Pisces, which is like a little bit more emotional, receptive, soft, quiet, kind of behind the scenes, wanting to pause and reflect. And the moon's going to come into conjunction with Saturn, which can represent a need for space and peace and to kind of be on your own just to reflect. Meditation, obviously, or anything in regards to spiritual development. Saturn is a sobering energy, so to watch the moon conjunct Saturn, there can be some heavier feelings. There also could be a feeling of, just wanting to be alone and needing to kind of process some stuff. We will notice when this conjunction happens that it's going to start in conjuncting the sun. So it means that we may not be feeling super social. We might be feeling like, okay, I just need a night alone, or I just want to unwind and, maybe like watch some TV. Generally, when the moon goes through Pisces, we do see people that want to loosen their boundaries. They want to indulge, they want to drink, they want to drug, right? But it's interesting to see throughout this entire cycle for the next couple of years, every time the moon goes through Pisces, it's first got to get through Saturn. So it's saying, no, take time, pause, reflect, think about things. Okay, you're feeling heavy. What are your emotions telling you? And it's got to go through Saturn before it gets to Neptune. Both of these planets are retrograde. So what you want to catch are those urges where you want to isolate, or you want to undo, or you want to just kind of hide away, or you want to drug or drink, and you want to replace that with something else that's going to have structure. So it's like, nope, I'm going to take 15 minutes. I'm going to, take a bath, or I'm going to meditate. I'm going to see if that need to kind of just undo still comes. And you might actually catch yourself and develop some better habits, some healthier habits before the Saturn-Neptune conjunction happens in a couple of years. Anyway, something about Libra and Pisces, they don't mesh. There is a sense of where Libra wants togetherness. Pisces is like, no, like, give me some space, because there's too much coming together. So if you're feeling like you want to retreat a little bit on Tuesday night, totally makes sense to me. All right, so then the moon's going to keep moving through Pisces. We're going to wake up on the 27th. This is on Wednesday. And we are going to first of all, pretty much like there's not very many aspects all day on Wednesday. Outside of the moon being in Pisces, coming out of the conjunction with Saturn, it's very unaspected. So on one hand, it kind of means like not much might get done. Having meetings on Wednesday, there might not be a lot of clarity. There can be a sense of things not really sticking. We want to see an aspected moon so we know that something is getting done. And the truth is that we're kind of in no man's land on Wednesday. The only thing that you're going to see is that the moon is going to, at the end of the day, start coming into a sextile with Jupiter, which I think is positive. But for me, it's like I look at Wednesday and I'm like, wow, that's going to be a day where there needs to be a lot more reflecting. There needs to be a lot more being in receptive mode, not a lot of doing, a lot of just sitting and being. I do feel like as we get later in the day and we start to pick up the sextile to Jupiter, we might realize that, through being more receptive and kind of going through the day on Wednesday in a state of meditation, we might be feeling more positive, more inspired. We might feel like we're more able to get done. We've rested, we've recharged a little bit with the moon in Pisces. Then we're going to see overnight on Wednesday, the moon's going to start to come into an opposition with Mercury. So there's the sextile to Jupiter in the early PM hours. And then we start to see an opposition to Mercury. Maybe you're sensitive, you feel this a little bit sooner. This is a lot of like, I'm not really open to communicating, being logical, making sense, doing data, facts, figures, like put away your spreadsheets. Wednesday night is not the night to do that. This is the time to be painting, to be, creating, to be praying, to be meditating. It's the sextile to Jupiter can give you the opportunity to really unplug and find ways to kind of get outside of some of like the overstimulation of the world. Granted, as the moon gets closer and closer to Neptune, as we're getting into Thursday, we are running the risk of like the self-undoing. So just be mindful of that. But for the most part, Wednesday is kind of like a cruising day. Not much is going down. Then we're going to get to Thursday, the 28th. And we wake up and the moon is still in Pisces. There is still that slight opposition to Mercury. So there can be a sense of still having some communication issues or feeling a little sleepy, having a hard time getting out of bed and getting into the swing of things. We are going to see the moon come into an inconjunct with Mars. So there is a sense of still being in kind of Neptune zone and not seeing things so clearly or not feeling so pressed to want to get things done. Another effect of Mars coming into conjunction with the South Node is we might just notice that there's less drive, that there's less motivation. Libra can be, because it's ruled by Venus, comfortable, lazy, complacent, indulgent. So we may start to kind of feel where, that is definitely, that's definitely a theme. We will also start to pick up on the moon sextile Uranus, but I think that the moon's going to cross Neptune. We're still kind of in dreamland, to be honest with you, in the morning on Thursday. The moon will come into conjunction with Neptune. This is going to be midday. That will be a time where mystical, magical illusions, It is at a 26, and that is a Taurus degree, and it's something that represents physical things. Neptune can dissolve stuff. It can be that something goes missing and something disappears right when Venus is starting to come into the square with Uranus. So let it be known, Thursday is not a good day to be making any big financial moves. Not necessarily because of the Venus-Uranus square, but because this is in a Taurus degree, and it tells me that there can be some things that are going on behind the scenes physically or financially, and there is not a lot of clarity. So I would not advise doing that quite yet. I would rather you guys get outside of the Venus-Uranus square, maybe wait until the moon starts trining Venus in Aries. We will see the moon conjunct Neptune, and now we are going to have a sextile to Pluto. So we're dissolving things that we've been afraid of. We're learning to release and let certain things go that don't serve us. And then that moon's going to keep on cruising until it enters Aries. And that's going to be in the PM hours, closer to about 6 p.m. on the West Coast, 9 p.m. on the East Coast here in the States. I don't know about you guys, but I always feel, especially now that we have Neptune in the late degrees of Pisces, I always feel when the moon leaves Pisces and it goes into Aries, because I'll just be in like total sloth mode, and then the moon moves into Aries, and then all of a sudden I start kind of shifting around and getting stuff done. You might notice that shift on Thursday night pretty significantly. When that happens, we are also coming into the full moon. So you guys are going to see a full moon that's going to take place, I believe, the early hours on the 29th. That'll be the full moon in Aries. When the moon goes into Aries, we are action oriented. We are focusing on ourselves. We're getting things done. We're being assertive. And I do think that as soon as the moon comes into Aries, you're really feeling that full moon, okay? It's kind of, this one creeps up on you. Like full moon in Aries, you see like a nice slumber through Pisces, and then wham, as soon as the moon comes into Aries. So with that being said, you're gonna start feeling this, I think, on Thursday night. And that moon's gonna keep cruising. And looks like we're gonna come into the full moon very early on the 29th on Friday. So this will be the full moon in Aries, ruled by Mars. Mars is coming into conjunction with the South Node. It's at the solar eclipse degree. This is 6 degrees. It's going to be about what is and is not working in relationships and the effect that it has on us personally. Anytime we see oppositions between Aries and Libra, it's definitely relationship showdowns, and whether that's saying, I'm finally done with, this relationship that's out of balance, or, I don't like how so-and-so is treating me at work, or I'm finally going to sit down with my sibling and be like, hey, this isn't working for me. And it's kind of interesting to see the moon move through a feminine sign, through a masculine sign in Aries, and then to see Mars move through a feminine sign. Very battle of the sexes, right? Moon-Mars opposition. I did put a video out for you guys on this. Check it out. I talk about how this moon is going to kick really on the back end. You want to make a note. This is where you pull out your red Sharpie. Friday is lit. This is when you really start to see stuff really start to blow up for a number of reasons, not just the full moon. Okay. But on Friday, this is when we see the 3rd Venus-Uranus square. And remember, Venus rules the South Node. So we saw one in the first week of July. We saw another one, I think, in mid-August. Venus, which rules money, love, resources, value, pleasure, socializing, is moving through the fixed fire sign of Leo. So there's been a lot of drama in relationships. There's been a lot of changes in personal values, because Venus has been challenged by Uranus in Taurus. So we've seen relationships have a lot of stress, in finances, relationships have a lot of stress involving children, right, Leo. But there's also been just a wild ride with the market, because Leo represents the stock market. And so what I'm anticipating is that there may be some really significant news coming out in regards to, the government and the budget and the this and the that, and how it's actually impacting the stock market, because this is happening at 22 degrees. But you want to go back, you can watch my Venus in Leo video, or you can watch the Venus retrograde stuff that I did, and take a look at where that was happening for you. Venus is not at a shadow yet. So this is where I told you guys that actually I thought some of the most intense astrology relating to the Venus retrograde was not going to take place until September and October. And here we are. Now we're coming into eclipse season. We're going to see Venus is going to square Uranus. She will move into her fall in Virgo and start opposing Saturn. So this is, like I said, it's almost like a really, really bizarre reality show. And like all summer long, it's been back and forth with a relationship or back and forth with a financial situation, or there being some kind of an intensity. And then finally now we're after being left on this cliffhanger, we see all of the fireworks that are going to be taking place when Venus and Uranus square. And this might be the pop that we have been waiting, where we start to kind of realize like, uh-oh, when it comes to the economy, it's not as positive and optimistic as people have been making it out to be. Now, besides that, Venus rules the South Node. So we see Venus and Mars sextiling each other, which is great. But really, because Venus rules Libra, you know, she has connections to Mars. So the South Node of Mars means that there is a lot of cutting, severing, dealing with frustrations in relationships, ending stuff. And it is what? Because of the Venus-Uranus square, realizing that you're not maybe in the same allegiance with a relationship, or maybe you're making changes with how you're spending your money. I've seen this definitely for a lot of people. The Venus-Uranus square is like, my priorities are changing. You know, I'm aligning myself with brands that, you know, are a part of my philosophy and my belief system. I'm going to keep telling you guys, vote with your dollars. That's the best thing you can do. If you're feeling really disempowered with things that are going on in the world right now, go and educate yourself about the brands that you're buying. Go and educate yourself about where you're buying these products. It's about breaking out of that system. I also think that it's going to be a lot more shocks and surprises with the banking system. So I have thought for some time that we would see more issues of bank collapsing this fall. And so this may be where that's coming in, possibly, I don't know. Then we're going to see, also on this day, Mercury is starting to build into the trine with Uranus as well. Okay, so I think that's pretty much, is that everything? Friday the 29th. So we've got the wrap up of that square. We've got the full moon. We've got Mars conjunct the South Node. Then this is where I said that the full moon is going to kick on the back end. Watch the moon. It's going to continue to go through Aries. It will first come into contact in the afternoon, the evening, with Chiron. So this is a lot of like, oh, I had that kind of blow up, and like, this is the effects that it's having on me, where I'm left to sit with and process and move through my own wounds that I need to heal. The good news is that when the moon conjuncts the North Node, it's like whatever you're feeling emotionally, you got to move through those feelings. Those have to be coming out. Moon in Aries needs an outlet. So if it doesn't get active, if it's not being competitive, if it's not being independent, if it's not going after something or having some sense of adventure, remember it's fire, it needs to blow off that steam, then it's going to have like a meltdown. And moon conjunct Chiron in the North Node is needing to heal oneself emotionally and process these emotions, where the emotions are telling us, hey, something's out of whack. Then we're going to start to see the moon come into an opposition with Mars in Libra, which is like, oh, you know, this person didn't show up for me, or this happened, or we had this conflict, and getting like kind of agitated. So remember, Mars is the dispositor for all of this stuff. So it's like there's going to be a lot of projecting, I think, on Friday. I mean, full moon in Aries, come on. But I think there is going to be more than usual, where people are kind of like picking on each other's, soft points. And then the moon's going to keep moving through Aries. So this is on Friday the 29th. But when we look at the PM hours going into the next morning on Saturday the 30th, then we're going to see the moon in Aries conjunct the North Node. And so this is where I want you guys to know, like, if you're experiencing separation of some kind, right? Or somebody's putting you on ice, or, you know, somebody agitates you, or something like that happens, and, you know, you're like, I just need some space, otherwise I'm going to blow up. Listen to that little voice inside of you that's telling you to take 10, go take a walk, blow off some steam, go do something where you can get an outlet. because with the moon conjunct the North Node, that frustration, you're supposed to be frustrated. Like, I'm not for saying, oh, you have to get angry, you have to get, upset, but emotions are important. The anger that's going to come up with the moon Chiron North Node is so important. You should be getting upset and be getting frustrated about something going on in your life. And whether that's about something that's happening out in the world or something that's happening to you personally, it's trying to show you, whoa, this is out of balance, right? Mars is what rules this. So can it create relationship drama? Yeah, sure. It can bleed, into Saturday morning for sure. But there's also supposed to be like this collective waking up that's like, I got to take action. This is out of balance. This is not legal. South Node in Libra. This is not fair, right? And I know some of you guys are probably cackling, being like, life's not fair. True, but obviously part of the medicine, I think, with the North Node Aries and Chiron is like people getting angry and getting upset. If you're getting angry, that means you need to do something about it. Take some kind of action, right? And find ways to be able to go to the source of, okay, this frustration keeps coming up for me. What do I need to do? Okay, I'm not going to be too much of a people pleaser. South Node of Mars in Libra. I'm not going to allow this person to take advantage of me. I'm not going to continue this pattern in my relationships. I'm not going to be a pushover. I'm not just going to roll over and take it, basically. So I think that that's going to be a huge topic in this next particular week for a lot of people collectively. I hope you guys are not looking for a fight. That's something that you want to watch out for, because there are going to be some people who are going to be looking for a fight. My moon is at 22 degrees of Aries, and I'm feeling the North Node getting really close to my moon. And I'm just like, yeah, I mean, as much as I want to be like, yeah, everything's great. Like I've been noticing I get pissed off, and it's me learning how to kind of have like an outlet for it. So whenever I'm having my lunar return, I keep looking to Mars, and I'm like, where is that coming from? Obviously being a Libra rising, it's coming from me not doing certain things that I know I should be doing. So I'm watching to see what's going to be happening next Saturday, kind of in the back of my mind, wishing I had taken this day off, but it is what it is. But I'm going to be curious to see what kind of things come up during this time. And remember what I said to you guys in a quote. It was during my my webinar for my eclipses. I said, war is what happens when people fail to listen, right? To communicate, to negotiate, to mediate. And so I'm watching this being like, there can be some stuff that can happen where some people are kind of losing it, and there can be some real quick knee-jerk reaction to things that can definitely be combative. They can be dangerous. They can also be showing us where we react too quickly and there is a repercussion. What is the repercussion? Legal repercussion, South Node in Libra. Endings of relationships, be very careful to be the first person to cast a stone, because this will be something where something will blow up. We're still in the full moon energy. We also see that Venus is just coming out of her square with Uranus. So if you've been in a back and forth situation for several weeks, this can be kind of like that tipping point. All right, so in the morning on the 30th, we see that moon continue to move through Aries. It is going to trine Venus. I'm hoping that you're able to get outside of the trauma drama of the oppositions, and you're learning to fight for the things that you love. You're learning to protect the things that you love. You're tuning into your instinctual needs and desires. I've loved to see this play out, in this last week. We saw like the million-person march all throughout Canada, where you saw people all over different provinces in Canada that were showing up and were marching to protect children, basically saying to protect children, and that they weren't aligning with some of the agenda to, educate children about things that they felt like kids had no business learning in school. And so this is a great way to work with the energies of, Aries and Leo, where when you're really passionate and you're fierce and you're wanting to protect something or someone that you love, you can transmute anger and hate and fear with love. And part of being loving means that sometimes you do need to tap into that inner warrior and go, no, I'm protecting this thing. This is mine. So we might notice some of that throughout this next week. And we'll see that moon come into a contact with the North Node. So watch those moods happening all on Saturday morning. moon's then going to drop into a square with Pluto. So this is the last aspect the moon is going to make in Aries. So surprise, the full moon is still kicking. It's still going a whole day later. And this is where we are tapping into where on an individual level we need to take action and not be feeling threatened or disempowered by what Pluto and Capricorn. Long-standing powers of manipulation and control and things that kind of hover over us or where we feel powerless. And then we're going to start to see the trine. You'll see this day with Mercury and Uranus. So in the same way where I said, oh, you know, we had the Venus square Uranus, then we have Mercury trine Uranus. So this is about thinking on your feet, shocking, surprising, sudden news, unexpected situations, drops, information, data coming out, relating to what? 22 degrees, long-standing situations, government, you know, jobs, business, finance. So that's going to be shaping up. Getting a little hazy because Mercury is starting to oppose Neptune, so there's going to definitely be sweeping some things under the rug, some things that are misunderstood, that are manipulated, falsely represented, dishonest. Sure, that can happen. And we're going to see the moon enter Taurus later in the evening on Saturday, so that'll be a welcome relief to have the moon in a sign that's a little bit more stable. And it'll immediately start coming into a sextile with Saturn. Okay, so Saturday night, a little bit more stable and secure. Taking us into Sunday, October 1st in the morning. And we wake up and the moon is still in Taurus, so that's nice, comfy, secure. We do see a bit of a funky aspect where the moon is in conjunct the sun. So both the moon and the sun are ruled by Venus, and Venus is still coming out of this square with Uranus, so we're still adjusting to something maybe. But the moon is just going to be coming into conjunction with Jupiter, so it does feel like more of like a lovey-dovey, indulgency, enjoying ourselves type of vibe. But you're going to notice that because the moon and Saturn are going to sextile each other, it's going to be making a finger of fate to the sun. So this is saying, well, what do we do to kind of come off of the disharmony that we've had? Well, we nourish the body, we eat well, we ground our energy, we focus on art and music and pleasure. So this can be a day where there can be a little bit of like bouncing back from what's been an intense week. You know, South Node Mars can be diffusing and taming some of those energies that have been kind of intense this last week. We will see in the PM hours, the moon will come into conjunction with Jupiter, which feels emotional, sensitive, indulgent. And the aspects that you guys are really going to start feeling that I wanted to bring up now is the Mercury-Neptune opposition. So that'll be happening more Monday, you know, Monday and Tuesday. But this is also like watch for scams, watch for things that are vague or falsely represented, because that's a theme. There's also going to be more talk revolving around healthcare and facts and figures, I think, in regards to COVID stuff. I'll leave it at that. And you're going to start feeling Mars coming into conjunction with the South Node. So those are two pretty significant energies. It's a lot of like, you know, where acting too quickly could potentially not be the right thing to do. We want to be reflecting on what is and is not fair, what is in balance all week, both to ourselves, but also to other people. And I would say be careful with whose advice you buy. So we'll talk about it next week, but it's definitely kind of in the skies for you in this month ahead, in general, excuse me, the week ahead. That's pretty much the week at a glance. You know, I'm definitely going to be doing a video, I think, on the South Node Mars conjunction. I know I've touched on it, but I will be talking about that. And the fact that Mars is going to be at 21 degrees, I think, is also quite important, because this is the same degree as the eclipse. So looks like Mars is going to hit that right here. So that's going to be on the 28th. So pretty much the 28th through about Sunday. Yeah, the 30th, Saturday. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Mars is going to be in the degrees which the eclipse is going to happen in. Now, the eclipse hasn't happened yet, but it's just worthy of mentioning, like, pay attention to the actions revolving around these days, because that eclipse is going to come through that degree. So that's going to be 21, almost 22 degrees of Libra. Let's see. Okay. Sabian symbol for 22 degrees of Libra, a child giving birds a drink at a fountain. The theme is facilitation. The symbol speaks to the unshakable trust in the basic friendliness of the universe and to the delight in discovering that the world is a place of unlimited opportunity waiting to be explored. The image of a child giving birds a drink from a fountain symbolizes helpfulness, care, concern for others. The emphasis on sympathy and little acts of kindness, which personal ideals can be tested, refined, and expressed. The suggestion here is that happiness is found more in giving and reaching out to others and receiving and gathering into itself. At its highest, it represents deeply held belief in the essential goodness of all living things and genuine joy in sharing. Watch for being superficial, false charity, or concerns with appearances, self-serving efforts to make things look good. The accent is on friendliness and helpfulness. It's likely going to be feeling especially sympathetic and generous towards those who are less fortunate than yourself. Your greatest advantage lies in performing random acts of kindness. Make this day a special surprise by a surprise gift from a stranger. By surprising a stranger with a gift. You never know how far the results will spread. Guard against trying to buy friendship, doing too much for others, by inundating them with what you think they need. Don't be a doormat to invite others to take advantage of you. Stepping stones are helpfulness, friendliness, responsibility, care, attention, concern, consideration, kindness, charity. So, Mars in Libra is where we're taking action for other people and where we're learning, I think maybe, that one of the best actions we can take, Mars, is by being less selfish, being more selfless. I love that, random acts of kindness. Right? I had one of those this week. I had somebody who's a friend of mine who also watches a lot of my videos who randomly sent me a tarot deck. And she was like, I just thought you'd like a surprise. And I was like, wow, okay, there's the eclipse. But I'm encouraging you guys, and maybe you guys who saw my my eclipse webinar, try to be in that headspace all week, right? What you can be doing. Try to look at other people, because there's going to be a lot of frustration with this moon. There's going to be a lot of combativeness with this moon. Learning how to transmute that and say, like, they must be going through something. I'm not going to take it personally. Don't take it personally. Don't be a part of the collective wave of frustration that's going to come through. Try to find ways to be able to still be kind to other people and don't get sucked into the South Node hole. I'm also interested in reading that 22 degrees of Taurus, because the fact that Venus is going to square that and Mercury is going to trine that, it's got me wondering what's that all about. So we'll read 23 of Taurus, because we're going to round up. I know I've read it. I'm just trying to remember what it was. The jewelry shop, all that glitters. The keyword is preservation. The symbol speaks to practical material values and a man's desire to own and possess all the things that affirm and validate his personal concept of who he is. The image of a jewelry shop full of precious gems and minerals emphasizes luxury, wealth, beauty, jewelry to commemorate special events such as engagements, coronations, graduations, and weddings. This alludes to the accomplishment of special status. It symbolizes aspiration, romance, and reward. At its highest, it represents wealth as a lower sign of higher mastery of values, a unique talent for creating beauty through imaginative enhancements of the ordinary. Watch for greed, materialism, bad taste, or gaudiness. The accent is on possessions. You may be tempted to overspend or be extravagant with your resources. A change in status is indicated. Your greatest advantage lies in focusing on quality, work for, and expect the best that can be achieved. Guard against excess, losing something of value, taking more than you need, going overboard in some direction. Don't bite off more than you can chew. It's been really, it's sad, but it's been interesting to watch because, the Venus-Uranus squares have been taking place since July. It's like all you see on social media is, just all of these like smash and grab situations where people are going into stores, grabbing things, going into luxury stores, It's kind of sad. I mean, I for a long time, I lived in LA and I worked in Beverly Hills because I was in the medical field. So I worked for a couple different offices right off of Rodeo Drive. So my early 20s, you know, I spent a lot of time down there working, and I remember going to lunch and being on Rodeo and seeing all of the shops and all of the things, and saw a video recently this week where they're all shuttered. Like, so many places off of Rodeo in Beverly Hills are just shut down. They're shuttered because of either what's going on economically, but I think a lot of it's the smash and grab stuff where there's been a lot of issues. Really, it goes back to the BLM. I mean, I'm not saying they're the reason, but when I was living there, we saw all of the protests going up and down like Santa Monica, going through front yards in Beverly Hills, going up and down some of the retail stores. A lot of them got broken into. And it has seemed like since that has taken place, the conflict and the issues that are going on, you know, in politics and stuff, is not just staying on one part of the country or one part of town. We're seeing it coming into the wealthier neighborhoods. We're seeing it coming into the areas where like crime and other issues weren't really taking place. Granted, the laws that are going on in California and in some other parts of the United States are making it impossible to fight back. They're actually making it illegal for people in these stores to be able to fight back against things being stolen for legal reasons, also for protective reasons, right? Because they don't want their employees getting involved. But the reason why I bring this up is like this, literally, Venus is luxury. It is indulgence. The Venus square Uranus, I think, can bring lots of tumultuousness, in the markets, but you can also see people who are doing some very crazy and erratic things in regards to money and resources and possessions. So it's been interesting to see this go on all summer long. It's sad because, you know, it's not just major retail stores and luxury stores. We're seeing things like, you know, people who own jewelry stores and who are private, you know, jewelry owners and other things that people have come in and smashed and taken, you know, insane amounts of product. So I'm hoping that this is not something that continues, but we've seen the Las Vegas the digital hacks that happened, which the news didn't really talk about, but MGM got pretty significantly hacked, which affected, I guess, their machines, their ATMs, and not just in Vegas, but a multitude of other places. We've seen a crypto casino hack that's also taken place with this square as well. So I'm wondering if the final square is going to be like another smash and grab situation. And I don't know if we're going to see just more of this out in the world, or if we're going to be seeing this in regards to a financial situation or an exchange. Exchanges tend to be more so the fifth house. So be mindful of that this week, guys. But what does it mean? I mean, when we have the South Node ruler, Venus, in a square with Uranus, we're seeing so much wealth divide. That's really what it is. We're seeing the rich get richer. We're seeing the lower and the middle class really continue to take it in the shorts. And this is about where gaudiness and overindulgence is not necessarily something that we're going to be looking highly upon. In a way, it might be frowned upon. Part of Pluto going into Aquarius, and you're going to see so much more, is that people are going to be talking about what they're giving up and what they're letting go and what they're you know, doing for the collective good. Part of that's Saturn and Pisces too, just what you're willing to deal without. But I think that we're going to see more issues revolving around this wealth inequality and some of the social issues and disruptions, Venus square Uranus, that is taking place with this, right? That's going to be brought closer to some of our doorsteps, unfortunately. All right, I would like to show you guys for each and every one of the 12 signs, real briefly, just what you're wrapping up with this square. I've done a lot of videos on it, so I know that for some of you guys it's repetitive, but I know you guys like your 12 signs, and maybe we can just kind of put a little bit of my 2 cents in on this particular square for each and every one of the 12 signs. As a reminder, I am a Western astrologer, so I study Western astrology. For my predictions, I use the whole sign method. If you're a Placidus user, you might want to be listening for where 22 degrees of Leo is in your chart. Obviously, if you are a Venus ruled chart, so Taurus and Libra risings, you're going to be feeling this the most. If you have anything, I would say like 20 to 24 degrees of the fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, you're going to be feeling this pretty strongly. And this is wrapping up what has been some tension back and forth really for the better part of the last several months. And as a reminder, Venus is going to go into Virgo pretty soon and oppose Saturn. So we're going to still see that finale that's going to be brewing at the beginning of October. Okay, so let's start with Aries and Aries rising. You have had Venus going through your 5th house, which is all about lovers and creativity. It's been about playtime. It's been about your children. It's been about what makes your heart sing. Okay, so Venus rules relationships, and Venus also rules possessions. And some of you guys have had a bit of back and forth in a love relationship. Some of you guys have been returning back to hobbies or things that you love. But with Venus that's been in a square with Uranus, there's been some tension also potentially financially. You know, the 2nd house can be about what you possess, and the 5th house can be about whether or not it brings you joy, and whether this is like a physical good, an amount of money, a certain relationship, a hobby. And certainly there can be some overly indulging, overly spending. But I think for you, Aries, this is about having breakthroughs when it comes to love, creativity, and happiness. Now, keep in mind, you're still yet to have eclipses in your 7th house. So some of you guys have gone your separate ways in relationships. Some of you guys have reconnected with people that you're really in love with. It really depends. Some of you guys are still looking. But because this is now finally completing a square and you're getting ready to see some planets hit the South Node, it can be about realizing that true love and happiness is about what you give yourself, not about what other people give you. And that you have to learn how to play and create and have a good time, and that you can't be putting all of your stock in another person. It's a lot of like realizing that a relationship is the icing on the cake to a dessert that is already sweet, right? Good luck, my Aries. For Taurus and Taurus rising, you are finally completing what has been several months of Venus square Uranus, which has been so personal for you, Taurus. Venus rules your chart, so it's been retrograde in your 4th house, where you've been reviewing maybe women in your family, what your home or your apartment looks like, how you're feeling emotionally, maybe some changes going on with your home. Obviously, having your chart ruler Venus retrograde means that you quite literally might have made changes at home, or maybe you've made changes on the emotional front, or there's been a change in regards to where you're living. Quite stressful this period, to be honest with you, because Venus has been in a square to Uranus, which has been in your sign. Venus has also been in a square to Jupiter. So there's some pressure going on, I think, revolving around how you are changing and growing, and the changes being reflected both emotionally but also on the home front. I see this as, you know, breakthroughs for you when it comes to your home, your family, and your roots. So maybe you've been feeling a little restless. Maybe you've been having some strife with a woman that you live with, but that's just now kind of finally coming out of that square. Venus doesn't just rule you, it also rules your 6th house. So this can be about, you know, changes with your health, changes with your schedule. If you work with a partner, it's about work with a spouse and how like there are some schedule changes that are going on. You've got an eclipse coming in your 6th house, and you've got an eclipse coming in your 1st house. So I feel like for some of you guys, it's been about realizing you need to really prioritize your emotional health and be spending more time with your family, or time kind of reflecting on your emotions. And that it can better kind of, you know, nurture the body. But you got 2 eclipses that deal with health and the body. So if you have been resting and recovering, I would say still take it easy through this eclipse season. But I do see breakthroughs going on for you emotionally and with your home and your family. Good luck. You got Gemini and Gemini rising. You are going to be finally wrapping up Venus in Leo, square Uranus in Taurus. This has been taking place between your 3rd and your 12th house. And, you know, Venus going retrograde in the 3rd, you know, maybe going back and forth about moving, going back and forth about a relationship with a sibling or a neighbor. Maybe you've been holding back in buying a car or making a change with a gadget. Maybe you have been trying to kind of like reconnect with a creative project or a podcast or a blogging project. As Venus has been in a square with Uranus, you know, for me, the 3rd and the 12th houses are all about change to how we communicate, change to how we think. changes in regards to writing and sharing and learning. Venus rules your 12th house, so it can be about spiritual beliefs. It can be about kind of wrapping up or closing out some kind of karma. And Venus is also connected to your 5th house of creativity and self-expression. So I'm wondering, like, has there been some changes or maybe holding back on traveling? Has there been some changes in just how you're communicating and sharing and expressing? You know, did you take a bit of a hiatus from social media? Are you coming back? That could be one way this could play out. But for you, I'm seeing breakthroughs in communication, breakthroughs in writing ideas, relationships with female relatives as well. And you might finally start to see some kind of shift in regards to your mindset. So if you've been kind of reflecting a lot more with Uranus in your 12th house, you might be feeling more inspired to write, share, create with other people, and be feeling like you're coming into like a very creative phase, right? Especially with these eclipses in your 5th house. Good luck, Gemini. We got Cancer and Cancer rising. You are going to be experiencing the final Venus-Uranus square. And this has been Venus retrograde in your 2nd house, where you have been reevaluating your financial situation, your values, your resources, maybe cutting a little bit back on spending. Certainly some of you guys have been feeling the effects of either having less or sticking to like a stricter budget, because the 2nd house can be about spending and what you possess. Venus rules your home base and your past, and it also has connections to your goals and your friends. So much of like Venus square Uranus has been about like your financial goals changing, or maybe changes in regards to your relationship with a group of people. Perhaps there's been some disruptions with a friend over money, or a roommate over a financial situation, or, you know, some squabbles maybe with even with family about money and spending and like living situations. That's over now. It's wrapping up. I think that for you, the squares to Uranus has really been bringing up where there is a need for change. A change to what you value, maybe a change to your possessions or how you're spending money. It's not as challenging for you. I would say the only thing that really makes me wonder is, have you been focusing on trying to make more money, saving money, because you're anticipating that there could be a home expense, a change that might be coming with your family, or some kind of expense revolving around a vehicle? That could definitely be a theme here as well. But for you, Cancer, I'm seeing breakthroughs in regards to your resources, your self-esteem, that you're finally going to kind of come out the other side and realize like what your worth is, and not feel like you have to settle for less. Okay? Good luck. We've got Leo and Leo rising. You've been experiencing Venus, which has been in a square to Uranus. Kind of interesting. You guys will have to let me know. I mean, I think that retrogrades are never easy to deal with, especially with as many aspects with this Venus retrograde. But if you got to have Venus, somewhere, having Venus for several months in your 1st house is not a bad place. It definitely brings a lot more focus and attention to your health, your body, your appearance, but self-love is what comes up for me in the 1st house. Recognition, exposure, radical changes maybe to your style. Venus obviously rules your 10th house of public reputation and your career, but it also rules your 3rd house of communication, sharing, and ideas. So with Venus being in your 1st house, even with the retrograde, it's been probably pretty good for, bringing more beauty and attention and recognition to you. This is one of those places where, obviously for the fixed signs, it's a little bit more active. The squares are taking place in cardinal or angular houses. So with Venus square Uranus, it's been about sudden dramatic changes to your status, right? At work, getting more recognition, the spotlight being on you, maybe changes to relationships, because Uranus rules your relationships with clients or perhaps even business partners or spouses. Is there been some stress? Maybe, but I think it's about realizing that there's something bigger that's emerging in this next year in regards to your public status. So for you, I'm seeing breakthroughs for self, for body, for image, for style, for your identity. And it's like a larger than life kind of energy that's been kind of building. And I think that this is just about getting more traction and more people talking about you, talking to you, connecting with you. So I think it's quite good for you, Leo. Good luck. We got Virgo and Virgo rising. You are finally completing Venus in Leo, square Uranus in Taurus. Venus has been retrograde through your 12th house. So on one hand, this is very spiritual. It's very private. It can also be about dealing with karmic love and relationships, love behind the scenes, working through something. So for some of you guys, it's been a lot of like letting something go or having some kind of romantic thing with somebody far away that's been kind of private. Venus, obviously in a square to Uranus is stressful because it represents kind of a stress test and a bit of a back and forth. So if you're one of those Virgo risings that's been in like an off and on relationship with a foreigner or back and forth in a long distance relationship, you're really going to start to see what is and is not potentially going to stick. Those of you guys who are single, it might be that you're starting to kind of realize that it's better to focus on quality rather than just having a relationship for the sake of having a relationship. Saturn's hanging out in your 7th house. So right when Venus starts to cross your ascendant, it's really great for your health and your vitality and your appearance, but you're going to start to realize that part of loving yourself is not allowing other people to kind of hold you back. And if there's relationships that are not giving you what you need, then there can be a sense of being like, no, I got to kind of stick to myself. So maybe your beliefs revolving around relationships have been changing a little bit. There maybe has been a sense of some of you guys returning back to places that you wanted to visit that you've been in the past, or returning back to school or to some kind of spiritual study. That could be the case here as well. But for me, there is a set sense of something getting ready to rise, right? Venus is going to cross your ascendant. So you're getting ready to change something about your belief system and your philosophy about love. So I see this both as like an ending and a beginning for you, Virgo, which makes sense. You're coming into eclipses in your 8th house and your 2nd house, which is big changes with resources and like a rebirth energy. So what I have for you is that you're having breakthroughs in closure, karmic love, and spirituality. Okay, good luck. We've got Libra and Libra rising. You are finally completing a Venus-Uranus square that's been taking place all summer long. Both you and Taurus are probably over these squares. Obviously, Venus rules your chart. So, Venus going through an extended retrograde in your 11th house has got you thinking about who are my friends, who are my allies, what are my goals, what am I creating from my career, what am I producing, what am I loving? Do I love my friends that I'm hanging out with? Do I want to join a new group or a new network? Venus also has connections to the 8th house of other people's resources and having access to other people. So there could have been a lot of stress revolving around a back and forth working with other people and like whether or not it's something that really pays off for you. The square to Uranus is also picking up on whether or not collaborating with other people makes you happy, or whether or not there is some kind of stress revolving around maybe relationships with other people's money. So debt or loans or your partner's income. There can be a lot of back and forth and trying to find ways to be able to grow your resources. If you've been a really productive Libra or Libra rising, you might start to really see the fruit of your labor paying off. If you've been nurturing certain relationships and collaborating with people, you might actually really start to see some growth where some of that is kind of coming back to you. The only challenge that I would say here, Libra, is that, you are coming into these eclipses and you're going to realize that with planets moving through your 12th house still, like Venus is going to be going through here, there is a sense of like letting some things go or feeling like you're going through like a bit of like an identity change. That can be happening here as well. But I think the Venus square Uranus, it's just, realizing what your real goals are when it comes to your purpose and why you're here and how you can belong to a larger group. So I see you having breakthroughs with friends, goals, and networks and being able to feel like you can actually achieve what it is that you're wanting to achieve. Good luck. We got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. You are going to be experiencing the finale of Venus square Uranus. I bet you're stoked for this one, Scorpio. Like you, Taurus, Aquarius, and Leo, all of you guys have been really feeling these squares. So Venus has been in an off and on square from your 10th house to your 7th house. And the 10th house is about your career. So some of you guys have started realizing what is and is not working with your career, what you would rather be doing, whether or not you can kind of drum up some kind of new business. Do you change your status in some way? Are you going back to an old job? Have you realized what you would rather be doing? Venus rules your 7th house of relationships, partnerships, and clients. It also rules your 12th house of hidden subconscious and karma. So for a lot of you guys, the Venus-Uranus square has been, if you're single, how do I change my status? Do I want to meet somebody? Am I meeting people who are sticking? You know, and some of you guys are coming out of this period and you're like, I have a new job or I have a new partner. Some of you guys are coming out of this period and you're like, I ended up leaving that job. I left that person. So it depends on your specific aspects. But I will say this. I think that you have to look back at what was happening in early July and mid-August. If there was tension in client relationships or relationships in general, or with relationships with people at work, this might be like that final bang. I'm also thinking about the fact that, you know, Venus ruling your 12th house, which is subconscious and hidden things with relationships, you're about to have a solar eclipse in your 12th house. So if there's been like this underlining tension in a relationship, you might still see it kind of rear its head. But on the flip side, you know, I feel like this can be about really pushing you to want to make change in your status, pushing you to want to have much more of a public reputation, and finally having some breakthroughs where you might realize like, okay, there's more consistency coming in with a client-based business, or there's more consistency maybe coming in with my relationship with people that I'm working with. Still watch that eclipse in mid-October. It does have me feeling like there's still something coming that you don't see. But for you, I have that this is bringing breakthroughs when it comes to your career, your public image, and the work that you want to be doing out in the world, okay? Good luck. We have Sag and Sag rising. You're going to be experiencing the finale of Venus square Uranus. Venus has been moving through a fellow fire sign in your 9th house. And she's probably been taking some extended periods of learning something, reevaluating beliefs, going back to school, or rethinking some of your philosophies. She's been in a square to Uranus, which tells me that there's been some stress or some tension because most likely you have not been traveling because you've been probably inundated with a lot of work. You know, 6th house is about sacrifice, hard work, patterns, and habits. And here you have Uranus. So there's been a lot of kind of inconsistencies with being on top of your goals and then falling off, being on top of your schedule, falling off, being on top of, you know, taking care of your habits, falling back into them. And so Venus in the 9th house means that it could have been disrupted because of travel. It could have been disrupted because of education. It could have been disrupted because of changes in your belief system, what have you. Not as challenging for you, to be honest with you, because at some point, you know, you experience some trines to your 1st house of self and to your 5th house where you've got some Aries stuff going on. So not as difficult. Uranus rules communication and also learning. So I'm wondering if there's just been a sense of you like needing to learn new skills, marketing skills, health skills, skills revolving around some kind of like new software, or making changes to how you communicate and connect with other people. So maybe there's been some delays and some hangups. Education delays, travel delays, and legal delays do come through this house here as well. But, you know, for the most part, I think that this is going to be a little bit easier for you to navigate. I think really what's probably going to catch you off guard this week is going to be the, you know, the Mercury in opposition to Neptune, or some of the Mercury trines. There's been a lot of getting work in order and trying to find balance between work and home life. So for you, I have breakthroughs in beliefs, travel, and the bigger picture when it comes to your life this week, okay? Good luck, Sag. We got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. You are going to be experiencing Venus in Leo, so it's in your 8th house. Finally coming out of a square with Uranus and Taurus in your 5th house. My Capricorns, my goodness. So this is also kind of financial for you. Venus has been going through the part of your chart that deals with the karmic entanglement with other people's money. So whether you're dealing with an inheritance that's been delayed, if you're dealing with, maybe perhaps a joint venture or joint investment, something that maybe deals with like your partner's resources. Maybe you've been waiting to get a refund or, get something that needs to be returned to you. And it's been delayed, right? So Venus has been in a square to Uranus, which is the money that you possess. Some of you guys have been having a lot of maybe back and forth about, getting a stock payout. That could be happening here as well. But also the 5th house is about happiness, creativity, pleasure, and the 8th house can also be about, physical connection and physical pleasure. So this could have been bringing a lot of like friction and fun and opportunity for more romance and like excitement, but lots of peaks and valleys going on also with the psychological effect of the changes in your love life, or the changes that could be happening also with your finances and the effect that that has on your relationship with other people. Venus rules your 10th house of career. So I'm also kind of feeling like there's maybe been a little bit of feeling back and forth with like, okay, the financial situation, I want to make some job changes. Could I potentially, take a chance and launch something and do something that is more fun or creative? And could that potentially pay the bills? And would an investment pay off? I do think so. I think that that's very much the case for you. The writing's on the wall. There's definitely some career changes coming with these eclipses in your 10th house, so be prepared. But what I love is that Jupiter and Uranus are, in a fellow Earth sign. So you'll see, especially come like the end of October, some of your investments or your risks might actually pay off. For you, Capricorn, I have breakthroughs in transformation of joint assets, but also freedom from karmic entanglement. Good luck. I've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You are finally wrapping up Venus in Leo in your 7th house, square Uranus in Taurus in your 4th house. My. Pretty active for you, Aquarius. So you've had several months of Venus retrograde in the 7th, where you've been reevaluating relationships to other people. Some of you guys have been like, am I attentive enough to a partner? Are they giving me what I need? Is this working for me? And Venus has been in a square to Uranus in your 4th. So it can mean that there's been some friction if you're not in a relationship with the idea of getting into one and finally getting to the point where you're open to something new and you're willing to kind of shed old skin and move away from the past and embrace new potential relationships and partners. It can mean that there's been maybe some friction with a relative. There can be some friction that's been happening with a child because Leo is a kid. And the impacts on, changes on the home front or changes with the family, changes that you're making where you're restless even because Uranus rules your chart, and how that's affecting relationships in general. So it's affecting someone, and there's been some kind of back and forth storyline with, whether or not you feel comfortable where you are or if you need to make a change in like a living situation. And some of you guys, because the eclipses are in the 3rd, you're feeling more active and on the road anyway. Bottom line is this, you have been challenged by other people because Venus has been kind of putting the pressure, making the aspects to Uranus. And what it's trying to get you to do is get out of the past, get out of your comfort zone, be willing to make a change in your family, with your home, with your roommates, or just emotionally finally kind of breaking free from the past. So for you, I have that you're going to be experiencing breakthroughs in relationships with other people and finally reaching for the love that you deserve. Good luck. And last but not least, we have the Pisces. You have been experiencing Venus going through Leo for the last several months. It has been in a square to Uranus and Taurus. Well, Venus, man, kind of a little bit of a challenge here. Venus going through the 6th house. There has been needing to take better care of your health, needing to pay attention to relationships that might kind of be feeling like they're not in balance. Some of you guys have been making changes with where you're working. You have gone back to the gym. You have gone back to see like a healthcare practitioner or a healer of some kind. 6th house is habits, work, and service, but it also can deal with health. And Venus happens to rule your 3rd house of communication. as well as your 8th house of joint resources. So I think there's been a lot of like talking to other people about what your needs are, how to get your needs met, what you like, what you don't like. And maybe it's caused some scuffles with some people at work and, you know, some disagreements. Maybe you've become more acutely aware of where some friendships or relationships don't feel like they're fair to you. They don't feel as balanced. So it's really been acting in a way, I think, where it's putting the pressure on Saturn in your sign. That's like about having better boundaries and being clear about what is and isn't working for you. The squares to Uranus is where you've had situations where you've had to either be alone or you've had to reflect and you've had to think about, okay, you know, if this situation is going on, do I say something? Do I not say something? Now, could there have been some kind of friction with a neighbor because it's squared Uranus in your 3rd? Yeah, or a sibling, sure. But also maybe kind of flustered where people aren't, you know, returning calls, getting back to you. That stuff can be coming up here as well. When Venus comes out of this square, I think you're definitely having breakthroughs with, you know, health and habits and, you know, breakthroughs when it comes to your daily routine. But Venus will pop into your 7th house and will oppose Saturn, which means you might have had somebody who's been kind of like in and out, back and forth. And then finally, when that person comes around, you might be like, it's not good enough, you know, or like you're going to take the wait and see kind of, you know, way of handling it and approaching that relationship. I do think that we see schedule changes here. We also see changes in the way that we communicate and, you know, think. So I do see the breakthrough as being in habits, but it may not necessarily be physical habits. It can be just relationship habits, communication habits, and like realizing that you're starting to get to a point where you're finally putting yourself first and not letting other people kind of like walk all over you or, just not really take your feelings into consideration. So you're finally breaking through with that. So you might really find in this next week and in this eclipse season that you're really investing more so in yourself and learning to tell other people, no, not good enough, not working, you know, so on and so forth. Vehicle issues is one other thing I could see here. So you guys might have had some changes with your schedule because there's been a back and forth thing going on with a vehicle issue as well. That may also get shored up once this square is over, okay? So that's it for me, for you guys for this week. Like I said, it's gonna be rocking and rolling all week long. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And do consider coming back, letting me know how these energies play out throughout the week. I will be back here on Tuesday and Thursday, giving you guys some of my food for thought, my astro musings. We have horoscopes coming up this week, so that'll be taking place because we're getting to October here pretty soon, which means we're coming into eclipse season. We're going to have an eclipse in mid-October. If you guys missed my eclipse webinar, I had it last week. I have it for sale now on my website. I do a deep dive for 3 hours into the solar eclipse in Libra, to the lunar eclipse in Taurus. I weave all of them together and talk about the themes of these eclipses, how it's going to affect each and every one of the 12 signs, but also how it's going to be affecting us globally and some of the patterns that we're going to be seeing. It was super awesome teaching that webinar. There's a several page PDF that gives you all kinds of ritual recommendations, herbs, crystals, and other things to work with. So if you're looking to get my insight on those eclipses, check that out. While you're on the website, make sure you sign up for my newsletter so you're alerted as to when we have new stuff coming out. I'm now starting to drop all of my calendars. This is like the fruit of my Venus retrograde. So I created some really cool lunar calendar prints for 2024. There's one behind me. That's what I've had hanging up. I was having to look at all the proofs before we put them up for sale. So you can see all like the lunations of 2024. There's several editions that are available. We also are getting ready to put out our 2024 calendar for the astrology. So if you guys saw that one last year, there's another one that we're going to put out probably in like the next month or so. So make sure you're subscribed because we do all kinds of deals on my courses and stuff for Black Friday. And we have some new candles and other products that are going to be dropping this fall. And yeah, just to check out my services. If you want to book a one-on-one reading with me, I'm happy to see you. I'm now booking in October and November. You can find all of that at beyondtheveiltarot.com. Thank you guys so much. Please don't forget to leave me a comment below. Any interaction with the channel is helpful, even if it's just saying hello or giving me a thumbs up. It really helps with the channel's algorithm. And we're going to keep on keeping on, and fingers crossed with some of these shocks and surprises in this next week. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you guys back here on Tuesday. Take care.